You're listening to Spirit Live. I'm Anna Saplala, and for every fourth trip that the Earth makes around the Sun, two footballing philosophies remain the same. That the World Cup is the most unpredictable narrative in all of sport, and that you'd be a fool if you thought to predict the entire thing. Knockout football is a form of theater that no science could fully explain, and countless clubs and countries could hand their receipts to prove it. Sometimes, it takes the weight of expectation for one to understand that the most revelatory aspects of football's theater truly emerge in the face of defeat.
And he's saved! Livakovic is at it again. Marquinhos, oh, he's missed! Brazil are out! The shock has happened!
For a second consecutive World Cup, one thing was for certain with every team I've rooted for. That in this day and age, football remains a simple game. 22 men chase the ball for 90 minutes, but if 11 of them make nothing of it, the Croatians will always find a way to frustrate and win in the end. Nonetheless, a thorough line would be drawn for the victors that day, and their influence would stretch far beyond credit that continues to be long overdue. Most people can start from the tip of the iceberg, with Croatia's famed class of '98, or its spiritual successors 20 years their senior. But an entire lineage of immortality remains unearthed at the thick of a Modric Trivela, the acrobatic mastery of Jan Oblak, and the career renaissance of one Dusan Tadic. Once upon a time, there was a country whose art reaped joy before it bore wounds, and where the world witnessed its most barbaric descent, football was its most glorious farewell. To a country that its theater would so nearly forget, this one's for the kids.
Di su komadi? Dobar dan. Izvinite, jeste možda vi čuli za Dvornik Dina?
Za?
Dino Dvornik, zašto praviš slona od mene? Ta pjesma.
Ne.
Ne? Jao, niko nije čuo za mene. Jao. Djevojke, može jedno pitanje? Molim vas, nemojte se sramiti sada. Da li ste vi možda čuli za Dvornik Dina?
Koga?
Dino Dvornik.
Jesam.
I šta kažete? A? Vidi, ne možeš vidjeti što je bar...
Sviđa, meni se ne sviđa.
Evo, dođi, možda ti se svidi.
Ti uvijek plešeš daleko od mene, pogledom pratim te. Ja volim svaki pokret tvoga tijela, znaj da želim te. Baci bar jedan pogled prema meni, hoću vidjet to. Iako sam daleko u sjeni, od momaka sto. Ajde dušom priđi malo bliže. Ja sam tu po strani malo niže. Tlak mu se mala diže, ne prilazim mu bliže, ne prilazim mu mala bliže. Tlak mu se diže, tlak mu se mala diže, ne prilazim mu bliže. Ne, ne, ne. raio liberdade. E o céu é tão bonito. Lá no festival, lá no festival, lá no festival que julgam músicas. Lá no festival, lá no festival, lá no festival que julgam músicas. O BD levou um samba que falava da esperança de alguém. A mulher do padeiro lá da padaria, a senhora padeira diz: que bonito samba. A mulher do engenheiro que constrói, a senhora engenheira diz: que bonito samba. E a mulher do músico, a música. Alta sensibilidade, espirituosidade, Só que deram zero pro bedeu, deram zero pro bedeu. Só que deram zero pro negrão bedeu. Que nota é essa, negrão, Cláudio? Só que deram zero pro bedeu, deram zero pro bedeu. Só que deram zero pro bedeu. Que nota é essa, negrão? Mi, fá, sol, lá. É onde?
No festival, lá. No festival, lá.
Festival, julgam músicas, ela fica brava.
Lá. No festival, lá. No festival, lá.
No festival que julgam música, o Bedeu levou um samba que falava na esperança de alguém. A mulher do padeiro lá da padaria, a senhora padeira disse: que bonito samba. A mulher do engenheiro que constrói, a senhora engenheira disse: que bonito samba. E a mulher do músico, e a mulher do músico, a música. Maestro, nota essa aí. Sol, dó, dó. Ah, não precisa sol. Só deram zero pro BD, deram zero pro negro BD. Deram zero pro BD. Que nota é essa, negrão? Vai, DJ! Beleza. Vai, tá bom. Esse prato, beleza. Olha. Aí, é bem. Aí, assim. Beleza. Repete.
Jugoslavija je danas tako vezana, toliko jedinstvena, bez obzira na nas, više nacionalnosti. Gledao sam sada kad smo išli iz Beograda i po noći, po kiši, ogromna masa sveta nas je dočekivalo. Zar bi čovjek išao da je nezadovoljan, recimo da nas dočekuje po noći, po 4-5 sati čeka sav mokar, da se sretne sa nama da nas vidi? Ne bi.
As the Iron Curtain descended over Eastern Europe following the Second World War, entire societies were altered, and what was seemingly a minor effect of this change was its impact on association football in these countries. While it was rare to see foreign players all throughout the 1960s, it was virtually impossible to see many great Eastern European players due to the isolationism of Soviet rule. Even towards the end of it all, many great sides would be forgotten and ignored. At the apex of this footballing legacy, was Crvena Zvezda's class of 1991, and defeated the Galacticos of Marseille in a Champions League final for the ages, and of its age. It seems almost bizarre to say that a European Cup-winning squad has been forgotten by history, but Crvena Zvezda so often have. Google the greatest sides in club football and you won't find much mention of them, if at all. Most articles will feature the standard teams you'd expect, such as the great total football of 70s Ajax, or the myriad of Liverpools and AC Milans. But there is no mention of 76 Tbilisi, let alone the greatest Red Star team in human history. Not even a passing line or two. The era remains a consequence of national regression, making Red Star's achievement relatively unimportant as Yugoslavia descended into chaos. But much like Onved's mighty Magyars or any one of Real Madrid's 14 sides are remembered, we need to remember Crvena Zvezda's class of 91. Their influence oozed class, and represented to the West what Eastern football can be. Most of all, they were a squad that remains a testament to what Eastern football is today.
And it's a turn here by Jugovic. Now Radinovic is in. Panchev, and yet again from Jugovic. Jugovic has done it again when Panchev looked as if he was going to put an easy one into the net. The 10 men have scored once more.
Red Star played a style that mirrored gegenpressing in the modern game. They countered with great pace, but they also pressed extremely aggressively in midfield, leading to blistering counterattacks that resemble the likes of Barcelona, Eintracht Frankfurt, and Borussia Dortmund today. The side also featured that great bastion of football history, El Libero, and Mio Drag Belodedici, a Romanian international who had previously won the 1986 European Cup with Astoria Bucharest, who became the first Eastern European team to win the illustrious competition. But all was unwell in Romania under Nicolae Ceausescu's brutal regime, and Belodedici defected to Yugoslavia in 1988. Stating that he would only play for Red Star, rejecting rivals Partizan in the process, he sat out a one-year suspension that found him guilty of treason before becoming a major proponent of this group of victors, marshalling the defense and sweeping up exquisitely, earning his nickname the Deer for the sheer elegance of his style. Another unforgettable player from this great Red Star side was Robert Prosinecki, a midfield maestro who at times seemed to be on another level to the other 21 players on the pitch. Prosinecki pulled the strings for the side with refined technique and flair, working the ball forward towards Dejan Savicevic and Darko Panchev. A lethal but forgotten playmaker-striker partnership, both still claim that the other was the best partner they ever played with. The final piece of the puzzle was the mercurial Sinisa Mihailovic, who marauded up and down the left wing with that bullet of a left foot. He could bring life into any dead ball situation, where he even made his name with a hat-trick to boot. But to focus on key players is to practically commit an injustice to the class of 91. A unit in every sense of the word, who worked together for the collective good. They opened their European campaign against Swiss side Grasshoppers, laboring to a 1-1 draw at home before demolishing the Swiss champions 4-1 in Zurich. Graham Souness's Rangers would then await in the next round. Prior to the game, Souness sent his then assistant manager Walter Smith to scout Red Star, and he came back with an ominous report. In other words, they were screwed.
Minic. Evo Pančeva stanje! Gol! Pančev!
At the time of Rangers' dominance over Scottish football, they were accustomed to having possession-based control. But that never happened in either leg of the tie, and Rangers were simply frustrated by Red Star's technically proficient skill. Prosinecki was the star man, defeating the Gers 3-0 at the Maracanã in front of 75,000 fans. A 1-1 draw at Ibrox sent Red Star through to the quarterfinals, but remaining firmly behind the Iron Curtain, they were set to face East German champions in Dinamo Dresden. Mihailovic would make his European debut against a raucous 80,000 at home, as Red Star would comfortably advance, putting 6 past Dresden on aggregate. But approximately 900 kilometers from the Maracanã was Bavaria, where Crvena Zvezda's greatest challenge lay before them.
Slobodan udarac za Crvenu zvezdu. Ovo je pozicija za igrača sa fantastično jakim udarcem Sinišu Mihajlovića. Mihajlović i 1-0! Gol, 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 gol! Da li je ovo trenutak istorije fudbala? Da li je ovo gol koji vodi Crvenu zvezdu u finale Kupa evropskih šampiona? Siniša Mihajlović!
This two-legged semi-final would capture the essence of this class of 91, who pressed Bayern so aggressively once the ball entered the midfield strata that receiving the ball would launch a direct attack that reached the opposition goal in near record time. This game plan was executed perfectly in the first leg, where Panchev and Savicevic ran the show, scoring from crucial attacks to take a 2-1 win back to the Maracanã. Prosinecki was masterful in midfield, delivering a glorious pass down the right flank for Binic to cross for Panchev's goal. History would suggest, often rightly so, that you should never discount a German side, and true to form, the Bavarians fought back in front of the Belgrade faithful, getting 2-1 in the match's dying minutes. The game started so well for Red Star, with a 25th minute Mihailovic special that left Bayern keeper Raimund Aumann rooted to the spot. However, the game switched on its axis when Stefan Stojanovic hit a fairly routine save that allowed the ball to squirm under his body and over the line. 5 minutes later, Manfred Bender popped up to level a 2-1 tie and bring a hush to the Maracanã. With only a few minutes to go, Prosinecki found himself with the ball in Bayern's box, but was chased out. The ball moved back to Mihailovic, high up on the left wing. He crossed the ball, seemingly looking for Panchev at the far post. Of course, the ball never reached Panchev, with Bayern captain Klaus Augenthaler attempting a clearance, but instead leaving the ball scooping up towards goal. For reasons that are difficult to understand from watching the quality of existing footage, Aumann was unable to cope with the dipping ball and palmed it into his own goal, making it 2-2 on the night. Red Star was through their first ever European Cup final by the slimmest of margins, with a 4-3 aggregate score that pitted them against only the best of Olympians.
Centre de Pelé vers Papin qui dévie habilement vers Chris Waddle qui reprend et but fantastique de Chris Waddle sur cette reprise de volée après le dévié sur la tête de Papin et un centre d'Abedi Pelé.
From 1987 to 1991, Marseille were truly the team to fear. Hosting the likes of Chris Waddle, Jean-Pierre Papin, and Abedi Pelé, it was a daunting task for a squad full of 21, 22, and 23-year-old kids. Faced with this challenge, manager Ljupko Petrovic decided to play for penalties and kill off the whole game. In what is perhaps the greatest shame in football history, two great teams had the audacity to play a boring 2 hours to a 0-0 draw. Petrovic's decision seems strange, but all becomes clear upon knowing that, in the Yugoslav First League, all games ending in draws went to penalties to decide the winner. Most of all, it was a blueprint that would become etched into the memory of one Zlatko Dalic. A 5-3 win saw Prosinecki, Binic, Belededici, Mihailovic, and Panchev tuck their pens away to clinch Crvena Zvezda's only European crown. It remains an astonishing achievement for any Eastern European side, especially considering a coinciding period of turmoil where Yugoslavia and its national sport were quite literally falling apart. Sadly, the class of '91 would disperse as well. As Yugoslavia collapsed, football fans were robbed of perhaps the greatest counterattacking team the world had ever seen. You couldn't even see the players perform together for the national team, let alone the best of them following their expulsion from Euro 92. Vladimir Jugovic, Savicevic, and Mihailovic were the first trio of ex-Yugoslavs to etch their names into the golden age of Serie A. On the other hand, Panchev at Inter hardly stood a chance. Within a couple of years, the team had been gutted from within, never to play together again, and thus, an era had ended before it even begun.
Don. Effenberg. Evo sada prilike za kontralapa Savicević, Pančev, Savicević, Dejan Savicević u 100% šansi i to je 2-1 za Crvenu zvezdu. Dejane, Dejane, Dejane!
To this day, football was Yugoslavia's swan song, and countless tragedies only ceased to blur enemy lines and engulf the nation itself. But as a football fan, it is possible to mourn the loss of the great class of '91. It is amazing to consider that while Yugoslavia fell apart due to societal, racial, political, and historical issues, this Crvena Zvezda were incredibly successful at featuring players from within the nation's various states. They formed one of the best footballing collectives of all time, but at its core were 30 individuals that coexisted and worked to conquer Europe together. Their triumph is immortal, but so is the spirit with which the glory was threatened to be broken. That to solely pick at the aftermath of atrocity is to neglect a sporting landscape that had sprung from a nation's ashes and disseminated into many footballing identities, whose wounds ultimately bore the same flair. What this team has transformed is far beyond debate, and continues to exist in every corner of this modern game. That for every star that has risen from the east, their light begins here. Amidst all scars, it burns forever.
Sezoni u ovogodišnjem kupu evropskih šampiona najviše golova, 5 puta je Darko Pančev bio strelac za Crvenu zvezdu, sada je dugo nameštao loptu, odlučujući trenutak utakmice. Darko Pančev i Olmeta. Darko Pančev, Crvena zvezda je šampion Evrope! Crvena zvezda je pobednik kupa evropskih šampiona! Najveći uspeh jugoslovenskog klubskog fudbala! Darko, Darko, Darko!
Prestaje sve u meni, gledam kako prilaziš sam, ne mogu protiv sebe. journey to the dark side. We've conquered new evidence that there is life. My folk prognosis make my brains come a toast. 100% funk runs bloodstreams through your nose. I don't have to be Madonna to make your eyes freeze. Visines for eyes when you smoke the Thai weed. For this, you need a journalist, scientist. Keep your eye in this funk, cosmical, far from logical. I blow the spot up in any hood and bulldogs. Make the bully of the block move and get new locks. The who kicks that phenomenal, astronomical. That's my 90, you feeling nauseous, that's my rhyme and you. I swing funk like no chucks, my game depth. That's cool when I blind fools like Kareem Abdul. Hot like Worcestershire, sometimes I get more higher than Cheech. My folk speech make words wear sun visors. I'm getting down with the funk in your chunks. There's squads in the house, but for all you punks.
Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side.
I'm just as high as 3 pilled up, motherfucker. There's squads in the house, but you sucker. Y'all chumps, I blew the frame once, twice. I'm dumb nice. I bring my worst lyrics to a gunfight. The top notch, now fuck that notch top. I'm off the meter. I make computers catch amnesia. I'm swiffing and rolling blades on ice capades. I'm fearless like 4, plus I'm cool like A. My grandma slam from here to York, Alabama. I never pull my pants up. I'm nutty like Planters. My style get deaf like Bro or deaf like Jeff. Deaf like Jam or Squad or deaf like Lep. 1, 2. Big up to my niggas on 1 deuce. That clock snaps and busts back in the boys and with weed for you. Who says I can't burn shit up just like Lisa Lopez? I cause the ruckus, my area is fucked up. You better off calling them Power Ranger motherfuckers. Cause Red Man will bomb just like Saddam. When I'm loose, I'm worldwide like triple fat goose. Heavily armed.
You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest. You would swear Red Man was a side. Coming down the block, man, loudest.
Ponovo zajedno. Abat. Švabin glas kao da je stizao ispod vode. Rane su ponovo počele da krvare. Imao sam osjećaj kao da grickaju zavoje i furaju napolje. Stvar kalibra rođaci. Kalibar od koga rana teško zarasta. Švaba je volao taj kalibar. Ma jebi ga, dečko su ukusali. Lepo što te ponovo vidim, brate, a?
Heavy as the neck that dons the Orthodox cross. In a nation's darkest hours, it swings slowly into pyromanic flares, and towards the filth of its own criminal abyss. At least, that's how a post-communist generation chooses to begin its story. It is beyond the consequences of crime defined by mania, and the delusion of power brandished by a brooding delinquent and a silent assassin, perpetually under the influence of remorseless grief. In the words of Nenad Todorovich, our wounds are a journey into the darkest hours of a distant region, littered with depths of the human abyss that chart one's descent into apparent hopelessness and the inevitability of desolation. If you want to see these wounds, it's because you need to. For Sheridan Dragojevic, this journey was beyond his earliest musical ventures, though its hedonism wasn't too far off from achieving perhaps the wildest and most beloved of his cinematic works. It was one whose release was so steeped in a world on the verge of decay that it took its brightest star along with its eventual success.
Nisam Hrvat! Nisi ni Srbin. Srbi ne plaću ko pičke. Si razumeo? Jes.
Brate, jel čuješ ovo? Idu naši! Srbija!
Sad ćemo da vam jebemo pčevu.
At the heart of Rana's own tragedies is a young man whose fate was engraved on film. Never mind his best friend Shvaba, who was practically built to thrive in Belgrade's criminal underworld. Born during the death of one Josip Tito is Pinky, a name he never asked for from a father who would risk his life naming his newborn son after some dictator that was this recently deceased. In one life, this was his idol, much to everyone's discontent. Set against the dilapidated backdrop of mid-90s Belgrade, Rana's people suffer at the hands of a manic dictator. Some are driven to their own ruin, while some are eating out of his hand, mediated propaganda scoring their frenetic cheers. Meanwhile, others are suffering a few kilometers away, mourning for the bereaved in their burned-down domiciles. Thus, a vicious cycle unfolds. The UN sanctions hit with full force, inflation increases immeasurably, and all seems pitch black for a future of post-communist youth. Driven by hopelessness, attempts are made to find outlets in new idols, be it polished for television or firing incessantly in the raw. Here, criminals talk about their accomplishments, flaunt bloodshot lesions, and boast about the corpses they've piled up. Rodaci suits and new BMWs are presented there, and the artless tutoring of a sexual nature is offered as a priceless entity. In taking the apparently simple, albeit the only possible path, there is no other choice for Pinky, let alone anyone, but to radicalize yourself.
Zadnja tura, kure. Ima da nađem tu pičku. Vi ćete da iskenjem. Hvala ćete vidjeti. Vidimo se. Ajde, skote jedan narkomanski, ajde.
What the nation's troops do, not far from their own front door, is of no importance. It's a far cry from its director's previous retreat into pretty villages and pretty flames. In fact, its director knows better about the war around him, and it's better to exploit familiar faces. Because wars are truly waged in the mind, and continually occur on every social scale. The eponymous wounds grow and grow, but solace is not an option, and healing is never in sight. The totalitarian regime in their own country has turned young people into angry, almost mindless killing machines. These are front lines born from the periphery, in which the youth are their own biggest victims, forced to grow up in an environment steeped in primitive nationalism. Rana is an absolute cult film in the Balkans, and its youth will continue to quote and idolize Shvaba and Pinky ad nauseum. So much so that it is perhaps comparable to those in the global West, who see their heroes in Tyler Durden, Travis Bickle, Jules Winfield, or Henry Hill. Truth be told, it could happen to any adolescent who is severely misled, Todorovic included. But he too sincerely hopes that in time, they will follow his path and realize what is actually being said. For the cult Dragojevic received is the one thing he never sought to intend.